What up, dudes? It's Gaz, and welcome back to another Warframe video. So, Protea Prime came out earlier than I expected, and we also got the Riven disposition changes on all platforms. So we're going to be going over both of those things today, as far as where's Protea's relics come from, Okina Prime, and Velox, and also what Riven's changed today. So let's get right into it. Before we do, make sure you sub this channel. We do daily Warframe video uploads. I'll also be live on stream right after I go grab lunch after this video's done. Farming out all the new Prime stuff, so come on, stop by. We'll be doing tons of farming today, and probably a pretty long stream. Let's hope it isn't already 100 plat after like 1 hour of being out. Alright, let's get right into it with the new relics and what drops you're going to be needing to get. Alright, took a quick peek, and yeah, Protea's got 2 Prime rare parts. You're going to be hopefully getting her pretty easily, but yeah. She'll likely be like about 100 or 90 plat after a couple days. So if you're not in a big rush, don't worry about it. Alright, first, rare Prime parts be from the Axii P7 relic. So Axii relics are going to be easier to farm from Apollo on Lua or from your Syndicate relic packs. The Protea Prime chassis is the first rare part. The second rare part is a Lith rare part, the Protea Prime systems, coming from a Lith relic. Lith relics are pretty easy to get, lots of places for that. You can get them from like Hepet, or easy missions like that. Next one's going to be a common part, the Protea Prime blueprint, coming from the Meso W4 relic. You got plenty of locations for that, such as Oxomoko or Ukko, things like that. Then the last part is going to be a uncommon part, the Protea Prime Neuroptics, coming from the Neo P6, another good one for Ukko and Oxomoko and stuff like that. So that's going to be Protea's parts. As far as the Okina's parts, let's hope that it's not double rares. It might be, though. Okay, the Okina Prime rare blueprint from a Neo O2. Okina Prime handle is an uncommon from a Meso G7. Okay, looks like we're pretty good here. And the Okina Prime blade is from an Axii B8. Okay, this looks pretty easy. You got an Axii common that you need 2 of, so that's going to be a very easy weapon to put together, thankfully. If it was rare Axii needed for that, it would be maybe a problem. And for the Velox, I mean, it's like 2 parts, isn't it? Velox Prime Barrel from a Meso V9. The Velox Prime Receiver from a Lith T12 common. And the Velox Prime Blueprint from an Axii F2 uncommon. This will be a very easy item to build. Alright, now that we've gone over that stuff, remember that... So yeah, honestly, Protea will be the hardest thing to farm from the Access. She's got 2 rare parts from 2 different types of relics, and the other stuff is like there's not multiple rares needed for anything at all besides Protea. Alright, let's go over these Riven changes, because there's some small changes. I honestly feel like they should have gone a little bit further, but that's usually how it goes with these Rivens. So we have the Riven disposition changes. Reminder, these will be your currently existing Rivens that are being changed. And yeah, guys, I know it's not a Frost video today, but I'm probably doing the Frost video on like Saturday. Just because I forgot there would be Riven disposition changes today. And yeah, sorry about that. But let's go over what we have here. Our latest Riven disposition changes are available for viewing below. For those looking back in time, feel free to study Portal Anchor this page and inspect our last set of changes here. So if you haven't looked at these before, they said they will not nerf Incarnon Rivens unless the weapon is deemed as a problem. So I don't think they'll be nerfing any Incarnon Rivens anytime soon. If anything, buffing the lesser used Incarnon Rivens. That being said, there are weapons that just aren't as good as Incarnons, even with like the highest stat Riven possible. So it's a balancing act, and it's not exactly like it's going to be they're putting that much effort into balancing it properly. It's just whatever gets increased or reduced, that's just kind of how it goes. But nothing really gets reduced. I'd say maybe the Ocucore might get reduced, but we'll have to see. Let's go ahead and look at them right now. All right, for primaries, looks like no nerfs. That's good. We got the Exceltra and Exceltra Prime both getting Riven buffs. I'm surprised the Exceltra Normal got a Riven buff here too, but hey, I'll take it. Exceltra Prime's Riven's going from 0.5 to 0.55. And reminder, 0.5 is the lowest possible in the entire game. So it's going slightly above the lowest possible. Maybe you actually have a slottable Riven on the Exceltra Prime, finally, but maybe not. We also got the Ultranox getting a buff, the Cinta getting a buff, both Feroxes getting a buff. I don't think that's going to really move the needle for me. The Nagantaka Prime getting a Riven buff. The thing's actually pretty decent, but yeah, it's kind of annoying to use compared to like actual good stuff. Prisma Lens getting a Riven buff because there's no Tenet Lens. Proboscis Cernos and the Stephalos getting some Riven buffs. I mean, there's definitely weapons on here. It's like, where are, some of the other weapons that aren't as good? Like, you tell me the Fulman Prime is perfectly balanced with Rivens. The Fulman Prime is perfectly balanced with Rivens. They needed literally no adjustment at all. I think there's definitely, like, big, missing spots on lots of these weapons not getting buffed on here. But I'm not a robot remembering every single weapon that needs a Riven buff off the top of my head. Alright, looks like we got an infested Roomba stuck on something here. This thing gets stuck on everything, by the way. It just keeps making these weird noises. Alright, so let's get out of there. Sorry about that. Continuing on, we have the secondary stuff. This is the only one I think maybe could get a nerf. The Ocucore maybe, but let's see what we got. Okay, so no nerfs. That's surprising. But the Grimoire got... I mean, I guess you could call that a buff. That's a really small Grimoire buff. Let's go over what we have here. A Furious Prime, getting a Riven buff from 0.95 to 1. A Carius Prime getting a big Riven buff, actually. Funny enough, I wasn't actually using Rivens on a Carius Prime because they were so low stat. I don't even know if this will make it actually noticeably better. From 0.5 to 0.6, like that's actually bigger than most of these weapons are getting, but also, like, it's still really, really low. That's the thing. That's the thing right there. So we got Axolotl Prime. I hope this gets an Incarnon someday. The Axolotl Prime. It's hilarious they actually remember the Axolotl Prime existed for once. But these things are so outdated, and the fact that it only got that small of a buff is really weird. Like, why did this not get like a triple the stats buff? Honestly, the Axolotl Prime is an impact-focused status weapon with like middling crit at best. So hopefully it's an Incarnon. But before that, how about you buff the Rivens a lot more than this, D? Because this is pretty sad. Speaking of sad, small Riven buffs, the Grimoire from 0.55 to 0.6. You telling me that it was that OP with the Riven? That that's all it got. It's a utility weapon. It's not even a DPS weapon. Let's go ahead and look at the Grimoire Riven stats after the change. Alright, Grimoire. I mean, it's 69% multi-shot. That's kind of nice, but 38% fire rate and 50% crit damage. This is not really going to make the weapon a good DPS like powerhouse. It could have used more Riven buff if you ask me. And this is just... It's not going to really do anything. Did the stats even change? Like, I don't even know, because I'm not using it for DPS. But either way, it got a Riven buff technically. Same with the Onos, getting a Riven buff from 0.5, the lowest possible, to 0.55. Yeah, again, it's probably not going to even be noticeable unless you were, like, writing down the stats before. 80% multi-shot, 61% crit damage, that's better. I think it was, like, 60-something percent multi-shot before, or, like, 74% multi-shot, so it's higher. I guess. If you wrote it down, you remember the numbers, it's higher. But, yeah, it sure ain't noticeable. We'll see about that. And then an actual noticeable buff, the Xylock Prime getting from 0.65 to 0.75. That's an actual buff. Like, you should have given the Grimoire a buff like this, honestly. Xylock Prime still, like, a little bit annoying to use. But it gets the job done, I suppose. So yeah, no Ocucore nerf, and a bunch of, like, not very good pistols definitely lacking here and not getting buffed. Let's go over, move on to the melees. Okay, got a lot of melee buffs and no nerfs. That's always good to see. Is the Ruvox on? The Ruvox is getting the little tiny buff that no one even notices. Okay, you tell me the Ruvox is that good, huh? I find that surprising, the Ruvox, that new Incarnon melee with Dante, is getting that small of a buff. Reminder, it like transform, when you transform the Incarnon, it gets less attack speed. It like nerfs itself when you transform it, so yeah, I find it weird that they think that's actually like good the way it is. But okay, let's just read what we have here. Argo and Vel getting a buff, cool. Cobra and Crane getting a buff, who cares? Dex Nikana getting a big buff, that's good. The anniversary weapon. Doorclave, the weapon of Dagoth, is getting a buff from 0.7 to 0.75. That thing's actually pretty good, so that's nice. They buffed it anyway. The Ekhine, the new hammer, or the new-ish hammer from Whispers on the Wall, like the impact-only weapon, getting a big Riven buff, actually. I think it's like is it the biggest Riven buff of today, actually, the Ekhine? Going from 0.7 to 0.8. I think it's the biggest Riven buff of the entire day is for the Ekhine. Yeah, that's the biggest buff we got today. Okay. See, like, this is what I don't understand. Why does this one get a point? It gets like a 0.15 buff, and the Grimoire doesn't, or the Onos doesn't, or the Ruvox doesn't. I don't get that. So I think they could have definitely adjusted the Ruvox more. Moving on to the Ghoulsaw, getting the Riven buff, get some more attack speed on your cruising build. Masseter Prime. Okay, so the Masseter Prime also got a big Riven buff, just like the Ekhine. Cool. Again, I'm not going to use the Massacre Prime, but at least I got a Riven buff for anyone out there that does actually use it. So yeah, Ekeen and Massacre Prime got the same kind of Riven buff, a big one. Rumblejack getting a small one. Ruvox, we already went over that, getting a non-existent one, basically. Sorrowfang and Slaytra both getting tiny ones. Tenant Livia, oh, okay, that thing's actually pretty decent. Getting a Riven buff from 0.75 to 0.8. So a small one, but yeah, it already was pretty good. It just had low Riven stats. So maybe the Rivens will be almost like slottable, kind of. Veracrez, who remembers that thing exists. Get a Riven buff. And there's only one Arcwing. You tell me the Arcwing guns are perfectly balanced, huh? The Mandanel getting a Riven buff from 0.6 to 0.75. If you did not delete your Mandanel Riven yet, that is. So that's going to be your Riven Dispo changes and all the locations for Protea Prime Relics, guys. I'll see you on stream very soon. As far as the biggest winners on here, I mean, there was a pretty tame Dispo increase, to be honest. I'd say the biggest winners. It's cool the Icarius Prime got a buff. I might actually use my Riven on it finally. The Ono's getting a small Riven buff, I guess, is good because the thing's already decent. Xylock Prime got a big Riven buff too. But again, I wasn't really using my... I was even using my Riven on the Xylock, I'm pretty sure. The Xylock Prime, because it was so low stats. So I can actually finally use my Riven. And maybe the Ekeen could be getting a nice little... I don't know. It probably wouldn't be that noticeable, the Riven. But either way, like, these are all so small. It's hard to even, like, you know, get excited about these. Besides maybe the Icarius, just because it was a decent sized buff. So, see you guys next one. I'll see you on stream very soon. And take it easy. Peace.